You got a new job with the SEC. Just kind of tell us about how that's going and what kind of things you deal with on a daily basis.
Well, no one's ever had the position. When Greg Sankey called me, he wanted a coach to maybe help with relationships with coaches in this very different time and difficult time in college football. So I'm talking with coaches. Relations is the name of the job, but that's short for relationships, and trying to build those relationships and maybe bridge the gap between coaches and administration as we navigate college football.
What kinds of concerns do they have just in general when you talk to them?
Well, I think the ever-changing environment of recruiting. Everybody, wants to talk about name, image, and likeness, and they want to talk about a transfer portal. If you go by definition of those things, they have nothing to do with recruiting.
Right.
The difficulties are for the young people. When you challenge a young person to start thinking about other parts of recruiting, let's say money. Now we're choosing for all the wrong reasons and putting yourself in a position that may affect the rest of your life. You should choose people, not places, let alone finances of this or that over. So I think probably the biggest challenge that coaches face is recruiting. How do you go about it? How do you feel good about yourself at the end of the day trying to do every little thing right?
Do you foresee major changes coming in that arena?
Well, I don't think there's any question we're going to see changes. The direction is maybe dependent upon laws, which is never fun and never predictable. It seems like maybe less predictable than ever as to where politics and judges and legal heads. But, I think there's definitively going to have to be changes. You can't sustain the way we're doing things. And my goal is certainly coaches' relations, but also mine is about players. I think that's the forgotten entity right now. How is all of this affecting young people? Their educations, their mental health, their well-being, the locker room, their teammates, their best friends. How does all of this, enter into what their life's about? So I'm trying to talk to players and listen to players, and first thing I'm going to do when I go to a site visit to a campus is I go in the equipment room. Equipment guys know more about what players are thinking than anybody else in football, and they're always right by the locker room, so I run into a bunch of players. So it's a complicated thing. I don't have the answers. I just know we got to care a whole lot, and we got to be careful how we move.
Last week was Alabama-Tennessee week. How did you watch that as someone who is with a background at both places?
Sure, it's always interesting. It has been my whole career, but I was in the press box in person watching it with Mark Womack and a veteran of the SEC, and just enjoyed the atmosphere, first of all. I've never been able to be in there and enjoy the atmosphere. I'm always a nervous wreck, but a great atmosphere. The fans are phenomenal. The color was beautiful. And then, I thought Alabama won the battle of the trenches, which often has decided that game in years past. As that game went on, it was very evident that Alabama was the dominant factor in both the offense and defensive lines.
Coach, I recently heard Peyton Manning talking about when he got recruited, how ill-informed he and his family were, like everybody was back in those days. He said his mom had only one concern about him going to Tennessee, which was, do we play Ole Miss? And she was assured, no, we don't play Ole Miss while he'll be there. And then that turned out not to be the fact.
Well, she was more worried about his Steve Kiner still around there, who had kind of disrespected her husband. And so that was probably the biggest issue, but we got past it. What her thing with me, once she realized he was going to Tennessee, was she asked me to keep Peyton's uniform clean. She said, Archie got hit too much. And I said, yes, ma'am. And I did manage to do that.
You did okay. Hey, it looks like you were right about Riley Leonard. Can you just talk about him?
I love Riley. I love Riley's spirit, his athleticism, his talent. you knew it was just all in front of him. I told our staff his redshirt freshman year, I said, there's our next first rounder. And he's a great mom and dad, great people. He's all of those intangibles, but let me tell you, he can throw it, he can move, he can think. He's a quarterback in all sense of the word. I'm really proud of him. I want him to get well.
Yeah. I know it's Mark Womack's department more than yours, but the scheduling has been a big topic in the SEC. How intense have those discussions been?
Pretty intense, and I've told Mark I'm not your bodyguard, so don't count on me. But it's a difficult task, and 8 games, 9 games, when games are going to be played, who you're going to play. I mean, when you got a 16-team league, you need help. We've gone outside. We've gotten analytics companies to do analytics looking back 10 years, looking back 15 years, as strength of schedule is important, obviously. And you do the best you can, and Mark is a veteran. He listens, but he's a veteran, and he's done a great job, in my opinion, of getting us ready for 24. We'll look beyond and see what that looks like. I think there'll be a strong push from television and have to go to 9 games. The only push may come back from some coaches not wanting to play 9 conference games, but I think it's probably inevitable, just my guess. 12-team playoffs helps that picture, but I said this earlier, SEC fans are going to have to get used to more losses than what you normally would see. It's just inevitable when you throw programs like Texas and Oklahoma in there, and then you throw a 9th game. SEC games, conference games are different. You had to prepare differently. You had to play 4 quarters. You had to play every second. You never know what play in a game is going to win or lose the game, so you got to have a team really prepped to play like this is the play that's going to win the game. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. I think it's emotionally hard on players and coaches, but that's what we sign up for. It just means more, right? That's what it is.
Right. Auburn has struggled some this year. How difficult is it in your first year as a coach at a new place?
Well, it's always difficult in the era of transfers. You're going to take a while to put your team together, bring in people in to replace people who left. Let's face it, that's difficult. But I think they've played well. I went up there in spring ball and talked to Coach Freeze, and he knew their problems and where they existed, and they've addressed a lot of those and had some really good moments playing the game. And the season's not over yet, and so we all know he's a really good football coach. I'm impressed with the staff he's put together. It's just, again, what I said. Hey, SEC fans, it's a challenge week after week.
Couldn't let you get away without asking if you had a favorite Coach Bryant story you could tell us.
I'm going to tell you what I hope coaches that get into business today are focused on. Coach Bryant told me, he said, don't get into college coaching because you think you love the game or you love it. The only reason you get in it is you can't live without it. And if you do that, you're doing a service to your players. Well, let's all understand what coaching is. Let's do a service to our players. Let's be there for them. Build programs still, not just try to have a team. There's nothing wrong with a program, and when that program's strong, everybody wins from it.
Your current job with the SEC, like it was, you're the first guy to have it. Is the job what you thought the job was going to be?
To some degree, because I guess I painted the picture in my mind, because they didn't give me anything. Said go, and I think that the commissioner and I, when he came into the SEC as an associate commissioner, I was the chair of the head football coaches at the first spring meeting he came to, and I remember him coming in the room like, who are you? What are you doing here? And he is tremendous. Thank goodness for college football, not just SEC football, but thank goodness for college football. Greg Sankey is serving.